Welcome to Into the Nexus. This is Into the Nexus episode 239 for October 18th. I'm your host, Kyle Fergusson. Garrett is out of town for his final week. But this week, I am joined by the internet's own, the community coach, Trevor NotParadox. Welcome to the show, man.
All right, thank you so much for having me, Kyle. I've been a fan of this show. I've watched, probably 30 or 40 episodes so far. So it's been a while since I've watched one recently. But yeah, I've seen actually some of the other stuff on A-Move TV as well. So it's been pretty cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, you're one of our most requested guests. It was an interesting beginning of the year. Overall, I think for all content creators, and you rose up during the time when the community decided, whether or not it was accurate at this point, that we needed to educate the player base. And
Yeah.
You're one of the big names that rose out of that. And I mean, to start us off, if you were to introduce yourself, how would you say it?
I tell a lot of people that I'm a student. I'm learning neuropsychology right now, and I've ran a marketing company for a while, and it was just kind of one of those things that I've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm. I moved up myself from about Plat 5 all the way up to Grandmasters, and I kind of wanted to show some of the tricks that I used and some of the mentalities that I used while I was moving up in ranks. When I started using just a couple of the tricks and showing some videos, and I had a YouTube channel that was kind of just old. I think I had like 20 subscribers on it, and I was just doing basic videos to show my friends some other games. And so it wasn't anything I did seriously. When I started doing videos to show people the tricks that I used to move up in ranks and the mentalities, people just really, I liked the method that I used, the style that I talked about it. And so just kind of grew. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to commit to making at least a video a week. And then that commitment turned into, well, I'm going to make at least 2 to 3 videos a week. And then it turned into, all right, I'm going to commit to making a video every other day for the next year and just see how that goes. And it just kind of grew from there.
I mean, you have a layer of infotainment on top of the heroes itself. You're a neuropsychology major, and you talk about people's underthoughts in a really fascinating way.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I hear that a lot of times, that when I bring out, and it's funny, I actually tried to do a psychology based channel before and it went nowhere. And it was just really odd to me that I put in all this effort and I put all this time to make this like full psychology based channel, and we put in games into the psychology base, and it was like it went nowhere. And then I started just putting a focus on Heroes of the Storm and then adding a little bit of psychology, just a taste of it. And people love it. Like, that's out of all the videos that I have, the ones that I hear the most about are usually the ones where people are like, I love the psychology side of this, or I love this part of the philosophy of this. And because I use the art of war in some of my videos as well. And people are like, I love that. And it's like, to me, I always think it's so funny because I've tried to make a psychology and philosophy channel before and it went nowhere. And I think it's just interesting that people want a taste of that in their own hobby rather than being like pushed into a hobby that's not theirs. They want like their hobby to be more interesting, and I guess that's why this one ended up working out a lot better. But yeah, I do think it's a lot of fun for me too, because that's what I'm already fascinated by. So all I'm really doing is learning something myself and then attributing it to Here's the Storm.
So did you start this because of the Reddit outcry for educating the player base, or did it just kind of happen at the same time?
It was kind of it was a mix of both, I guess. I made like the first couple videos when I first was starting back up, or at least doing it. There was like 2 or 3 videos I made to answer questions that people had, because I joined the new player area and there was a couple of questions people had, and I explained those. And they didn't really come through when I was explaining it in text. So it was like, oh, I'll just make a quick video about it. So I made a video about it, and they shared it with a bunch of people, and it was like kind of interesting from there. And it just kind of spurred from that. Was it because everyone was wanting the player base to be educated? I don't really think so. Although I was a little inspired by Kala at the time, because Kala was doing the community coaching. I was like, man, this is cool. I want to coach someone. So then I joined in on, I believe it was like Finding Fives or Hero Fives. I don't remember. There's a Discord. Its name escapes me at the moment, but it's like where a coach will find a group of 5 people and help them out. And I was like, oh, I want to help this out. So I joined and I offered to be a coach. When I offered to be a coach, that for whatever reason that season they said, oh, we have too many coaches and not enough teams, so we don't need you. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't coach, so I'll just I'll make a video and post it online. And it just kind of grew from there. But it wasn't necessarily because they like the community was crying for, or sorry, like there was an outcry for community coaching or for the educated community. It was more just kind of a few things happened at once, and I was like, all right, I'll make some videos.
Yeah. I mean, it is fascinating that this feels like the psychology aspect applies better to Heroes of the Storm because of the shared levels. If I were to look up a League of Legends or Dota video, I'd want to know how to own real good and get my money. But there is that element of everyone's on the same table, at the same level. How can I get them to do what I want?
Yeah, and I do think that's actually one of the most underrated things about Heroes of the Storm is how much can you do by yourself. And I think that's also where a lot of my channel grew, is I had a video on there, and it was me trying to prove that I moved up in rank by myself, and I wanted to show examples of other people who did it and how I went about doing it. So I named the video, like, can you carry in Heroes of the Storm? So many people asked that question. So many people wanted to know the answer to that question. And so I thought that would be the best way to approach the entire area. And when I made that video, I think that really did get people interested in the rest of my channel of what else can I learn if I can. So if this video proves that I can carry by myself, what else can I actually learn from this channel? And that was kind of my hope. I still leave that as my main video on the channel, even though it's pretty outdated now. But I think in League, like I played League before this, and I do agree that like if you get fed in League of Legends, you definitely feel like you can carry even if a lot of bad things happen. But I kind of feel the same way sometimes. Like if I play with low ranked players in Heroes of the Storm, or if I play with just a group that I can get something to get me a little bit ahead, I feel like I'm really pushing forward as well. Like if I play Joanna, for example, and I'm on a map that I can double soak, and I'm double soaking well, and then the enemy team's forced to put people who don't soak as well in those lanes, I feel like I'm costing the enemy so much time, and it's so easy for my team to just go do a camp because the enemies are so distracted with dealing with 2 waves that are pushing into their towers constantly, they don't even realize that we're doing a camp. And so I think it's something that there's so many ways that you can carry, and War says that it's about social skills, and it's not, and he's not wrong at all. It's one of the things that I mentioned in the video too, is there's so many things you can do to bump up your win rate by 10 to 25% by just telling people to do easy things at the right times. And like one of them, I just literally got out of a coaching session, I don't even know, 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, and it was the big thing that I said to him was, when you are playing someone who soaks, so this one was yesterday. I was coaching someone yesterday, the day before yesterday, and he was playing Garrosh, and he kept saying, "Oh, I'll just let Jaina soak." I said, "Yeah, but who's the only one on your camp that can actually start? Who's the only one on your team that can actually do camps?" And he said, "Oh, well, Jaina." And I said, "So why aren't you soaking and telling the Jaina to go do a camp?" And I said, then you're getting the soak still. You're also getting a camp. And I said, that alone will probably bump up your win rate by 5% just by saying one sentence. So there's so many different things that you alone can do by either telling your team what to do or playing heroes that catch something in that specific meta. And a lot of times, sorry, I kind of just went off on that question.
No, absolutely. That's what you're here to do, by the way.
But yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that really got me about when I moved from League to Heroes of the Storm, is I felt like I had just as much potential to carry. I just had to do it in different ways.
And it's such a... if you enjoy that puzzle, which I do, which is why I enjoy your videos so much, there's also that fine line of, does the information matter? Like, yesterday I was in a game where the white main had to heal off a Garrosh. I didn't want her to attack the Garrosh because that armor's reducing the actual healing output.
Oh, yeah.
But she didn't have any other targets. So one part of my brain saying, tell Whitemane she's doing it wrong. And the other half is going, well, she really doesn't have another target. Let's let the sleeping dog lie.
Yeah. Oftentimes I tell people you don't need to overthink things when you're working with like telling people on your team. Like I never really tell people what to do unless it's very important that that's needed for the game. Like there was one game where I was playing with a Zeratul and I was playing Malfurion. And one of the things that I like to do with that combo is I like to go Twilight Dream. When he hits his people, I'll walk into the Twilight Dream and then I'll just mash hit the R button. And when I mash hit the R button, the second that Twilight ends, whenever he wants to end it, if he wants to end it early or if he wants to let it last the entire time, I immediately silence and damage everyone that's in that thing. And it's just a little trick that I do. Well, the thing that ended up happening a little weird is that he kept using like really weird Twilights, and then I would walk up to it like I was going to stand in it, and he would turn it off early. And then I would go to cast, and it was very predictable at that point, and they were able to interrupt it. And it was just really strange. So I told him at the point, I said, hey, you know what? Just leave it up. Let me walk into it, and I'll mash it. I said, it always works in Hero League. I said, so let's try that out. And then at level 20, he picked up the talent that you should never go, that makes it to where your allies can walk through without getting interrupted. And I was like, well, now if I sit there, and he said, no. He goes, it makes sense. You go in, you press R, and I'll turn it off in time. That's what he told me. And I said, okay. So I walk in, I use my R, he doesn't turn it off, and then he turns off the thing later, and then we're still stuck. And I'm like, so I just tell people when you're in Hero League, don't overthink anything. Don't try to confuse your team. Even in draft, a lot of times I tell people in low ranks, I say, the draft isn't as important as gameplay is. Like, if you can cover all the things that your team's missing, it doesn't matter if you have double mage. It doesn't matter if you have all physical damage. It doesn't matter if the enemies have an Asmodan and you don't have a counter to them. At the end of the day, if you're playing well every single game and everyone's on their best role, it's better than people playing something that they've never played before in order to counterpick it. So I just tell people, don't overthink a lot of those things. Just play your best. Make sure everyone is also playing their best.
And by the way, the YouTube channel we're talking about during all this is youtube.com/NotParadox.
So, okay, so that's actually something, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. So it's actually, this is kind of funny. It's /C/NotParadox, or it's /Trevman003, because I actually made this account when I was like 11, and I decided I would just keep it because why not? And then I learned that if your account was made over 10 years ago, you can't change the account name anymore, but you can make new URLs. So so it's not /NotParadox, it's /C/NotParadox, and it's a whole mess of things, honestly. But I mean, YouTube, you know, what can you do?
It'll get you there. It'll get you
yeah.
there. You might think about it for a moment, but that link will get you there. We also have the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Most recently, you put up a video on one of my favorite suggestions, but definitely one of my favorite ways to carry, which is power spikes. And the surprise that you can suddenly have for your enemy team. My favorite, probably Root Jaina. Getting that Cone of Cold Root. And someone's like, wait a minute. I can't move. And then it lasts no time at all, but they're dead. And it's fantastic. Genji can't move.
I was watching this video. One of the things that I like to do is I like to go through on streams. I like to find like really small streamers, like these like 1 to 3 viewers, and anyone who has a webcam that's kind of like they're trying to be streamers or really trying to get out there. And I like to really see what they're doing. And this one streamer I was watching, it was really funny. He was playing against a Jaina. He's playing Zul Jin. He was playing against a Jaina. And he hit this point where she rooted him into a ring, into another root when the ring ended. And he's sitting there going, guys, I don't know what was going on. I couldn't move for like 6 seconds. I couldn't move for 6 seconds. And I felt so bad for the guy because he couldn't figure out what happened. And he's like, I don't know what they're doing, but I couldn't move in for 6 seconds. And I was like, that's what that Jaina root thing can do. It's crazy. It's literally root, bigger root, smaller root. And then if you have icy veins, you could throw on another one right when they're done with all those. It's crazy. I love that power spike.
Well, poor Zul'jin. He's somebody I love playing that just gets a little stuck in the fast-paced new world of Heroes.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually something that I've been wanting to talk to Blizzard about, is when you mentioned the new state of Heroes. And I don't know how much I can talk about this, but the power spike, or the power creep. You know what power creep is, right? You've played a lot of competitive games.
Yeah, well, and you also cover like Magic the Gathering, and there's a very good comparison there.
Yeah, that has a lot of problems with power creep. So power creep, for the viewers that don't know what it is, power creep is essentially when a game releases something new that is more powerful than something that they had before. They need to make a decision on how to make the thing that they had before not just be outclassed by it. So a lot of times what happens in games is they will buff or change the thing that was in the past to make it viable in another area. Well, if everything keeps coming out more powerful than old things, the game just keeps getting more and more in one direction. We've seen this problem in this game with mobility creep before, where everything gets faster and faster. But we're actually seeing a pretty big issue with power creep, where I use the example of ETC. I watched the pro games back from 2015 and 2016, and ETC was one of the main tanks that we saw all the time. And ETC was one of the tanks that we saw because he could do a lot of things. He could heal a lot, and he was very, very tanky. He was very hard to kill. But if you watch ETC as a main tank today in any pro scenario, he blows up so fast. He dies in seconds. I mean, compared to people like Murden, Joanna, and Garrosh, he dies in seconds. So I checked the patch notes and was like, man, why has ETC gotten so weak? And realized he's only ever received health and armor buffs. He's never received a defensive nerf since that time. And that's when I've realized that we actually have a pretty big power creep problem that has showed up recently that we haven't seen before. And I want to talk to Blizzard about the possibility of maybe nerfing everyone by 10%. And I'm not going to say that it's an idea that they need to roll with. I'm going to just simply ask them if that's something that they've thought about doing, because I'm really curious if that would actually do that. But I don't know. I'm just curious about that. So, I mean, do you think that would help at all, like a 10% damage nerf on just across the board? Or do you think that would cause too many other problems with like siege, because it would slow down the siege, it would slow down camp clear, it would slow down everything else other than just heroes, and it would also make healing overpowered, so you'd probably need to nerf healers and damage to make it work.
It's a fascinating idea, and there is a lot of complaints about focus fire when it's pulled off in home environments and how quickly you can be deleted from the video game. We see pros counteract that with armor, with things like Wishlist, with Medivh being a great counter to the focus fire as well. And if we slow that down, does that solve that problem? It's such an interesting balancing act, because we have the pro scene where we need to control what they're up to while still making sure our home games make sense. When we see a fight that nobody dies in, when we're watching esports, we go, oh, well, that fight didn't matter. That was stupid. Why did this happen? The game's busted. Too many people die. Oh, the game's too explosive. It's interesting to look at something like Weinzierl's mana now to Mal'Ganis, who just came out.
Oh, yeah. And we'll get into that beast in a minute.
And what kind of creep is this? We nerf their mana so they can't participate as much in pro games, but they're too slow in our home games, and it's a balancing act for sure. And the mobility creep's a fascinating conversation too, because no matter what you do, there's mobility. You get rid of Genji, we're all going, Li Ming, Li Ming got away.
I always had this idea to counter mobility with a new feature. So I don't know if anyone has played Guild Wars 2, but there are these specific forms of things like bleeds, burning, and there's one particular one, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but let's call it Havoc. And this one called Havoc would make it to where it does like 10 damage per second, but then if you have Havoc, if you're moving and you have Havoc, you take 4 times the amount of damage. And I thought that would be kind of interesting to add a new type of damage over time on a couple different heroes to answer mobility, make it talents, kind of like an Envenom that you can pick up on specific ones. I've always thought that to counter something that is really powerful, like double tank, you need an answer like percent health, or you need an answer because what happens if the enemies draft double tank, then your auto attacker just needs to pick their version of whatever it is, the percent health giant killer. They either pick their giant killer or their martial law or whatever their variation of the percent health is. So an auto attacker naturally counters double tank. That's just kind of how it is. So if they pick double tank, you pick an auto attacker, you're pretty good. Torment, that's what it's called in Guild Wars 2. Sorry. It's called Torment. And then for double healer, I always thought that instead of us just nerfing the healers, let's make every mage, because we already have all the physical damage dealers answering double tank, let's make every mage have a talent that they can lower healing receive. And that way and make it on a competitive tier. So it's not a talent you pick against a single healer. It's something that you really need to make a sacrifice to pick against a double healer. And I always thought that that would be the best way to balance things like that. So when you get to mobility, let's give it to tanks. Let's give tanks the answer to mobility, where right now we have range that deals with tanks. We have range that deals with healers. We can have healers who deal with CC by using cleanses. And we have tanks who can deal with mobility by using torment or whatever they want to do. And that was kind of my idea of balancing everything like that. So instead of us balancing, oh, let's counter mobility with Maev, I don't really like balancing things purely in draft, because then like sneaky picks, I never want a game to be over because of a draft.
Yeah. I
want a draft to give you the tools you need. And then I want the game to be the decisions that you make to win the game. So I don't know. That's always been my thought on balancing things that are like double heals, double tanks, high mobility, or anything like that, high CC, things like that. But I think Blizzard's kind of going in a slightly different direction. I'm not saying it's wrong or anything, but they are going in a different direction because they're removing cleanses and they're putting fewer healing reduction things in the meta. They're just nerfing healers. And the off tanks and stuff. Instead of making it to where there's more answers to a Yrel and a Blaze in the off lane, they're just lowering their mana. So they're going in a different direction. Again, I'm not saying that's bad in any ways. They're the ones with experience in balancing. I have no experience in balancing any game, so I probably am pretty bad at it. You know, I could come up with ideas like anyone else, but I'm guessing I'm not that great at it.
But there's still ideas which are more valuable than a complaint, a feedback, quote unquote, that is merely, I dislike this. This is actual, kind of content. I mean, it is something that I've wanted for a long time, is the wordification that Magic has, the vocabulary word, Death Touch.
Yes.
Right now at level 16 for Lunara, Invigorating Spores, the text simply says, when you see it there on your talent bar, empowers basic attacks. And so you go, oh, I don't need to empower my basic attacks. My basic attacks are great. You hover over it, 30% attack speed, 6 seconds, and then that's the giant killer talent. But nowhere in there does it say in the shortened version, this just needs to have giant killer in bold and perhaps, call attention to that.
I had a video, and then I ended up deleting it because it came off a little too snarky, I think. But I had a video where I showed all of the inconsistencies in the tooltips, and I showed the infinitely stacking talents that didn't say they were infinitely stacking. I showed talents with the same exact wording that didn't stack infinitely, and then I showed all of these other ones, and I said, Blizzard, I will volunteer to rewrite every single tooltip in your game right now for free. And I said, and I'll do it with help from the community. I said, because these tooltips need some help. But that was one of the things that, that was one of the things that I looked at, because I was like, there were so many little inconsistencies that I honestly, but then I was like, this video is so snarky. I just need to delete this and make it a lot better. And then like one of the heroes that had like multiple inconsistencies on their own hero was the old Tyrande. So I'll need to find some better examples, because I use Tyrande a lot in the examples, because hers, for example, her bird would stop stacking at like the 50 or whatever it was at, but her E would keep stacking, and the E never said it stacked indefinitely, but the bird never said it didn't stack indefinitely, and one stacked indefinitely and one didn't. So I'm like, literally on one hero you can find inconsistencies. So it was kind of interesting to see, but I'm sure I can find some more. I just don't think there's any point in making it. Last time it came off so snarky. So
well, and that's maybe people didn't know you. I mean, hearing you talk about it now, I'm like, yeah, what a great idea. And we're not able to contribute to that game in this way. There's not the in-game guide system like Dota has, but there is that opportunity for clarity. I know multiple people who have to, every time they read a maximum health or remaining health, have to go, hold on, which one? And then react based on what spell they want after that.
Yeah, it would be, you know what you said about the magic terms, and Guild Wars does the same thing. When I asked what was that dot that did that, he said it was torment. Guild Wars, everything has these things that are called boons and conditions, and everything is the same. If you were to give a buff to allies, it would either give so many boons, and if you were to give a debuff to enemies, it would do conditions. So if it was damage over time, let's say, for example, Gul'dan, he would apply burning when he uses his E. That way it could be a lot easier if someone ever needed to ask the question of, what does this remove? Oh, this removes burning. This removes this removes that. And it does make it to where it's a lot easier for people to remember because everything's the same. But then having that could also put you in a bottleneck of having too many things but that are like too much the same. But I don't think that really ever affects either of those games because it just consolidates a lot of the things that are the same, and then you still can be creative with it. Like there's still abilities in Guild Wars 2 that are very creative. There's still cards and magic that don't fit into those things. Like there's flying, there's death touch, there's lifelink, and then on that same creature that has flying, death touch, and lifelink, it can have an ability that's like pay X and bring a creature back from the graveyard that costs X. You know, they don't need that. You can still get creative. So I do think that some consolidation would make it easier for new players to learn, because then it's like, oh, that applies bleeding. Okay, bleeding hurts. I get that. And same thing with healing reduction. Like if that was called something specific, and if it was very visible, like you have, I don't know what a good term would be for healing. Let's say hexed. You're hexed, so your healing is reduced while you're hexed, and that would be a lot easier knowing that, oh, well, I got hexed, that's why I died, rather than whatever. Like Malthael applies hex, and Emerald applies hex. So I think that would be pretty cool. But I don't know. That's, again, random things that are probably have nothing to do with anything that will ever happen in the game.
Well, there's a rich history to pull from. Hamstring, Mortal Strike, like all these words from Hearthstone and World of Warcraft. In Diablo, we have a great example of, would you like advanced tooltips? And you click that button, the spells go to paragraphs long. And you're like, oh my god, I had no idea that Arcane Orb did so many things. But now that I click this button, it's giving me all the text. Whereas Magic the Gathering has to fit on a card, and I feel like, despite how great it is, it was likely not a reaction to readability, just we can't fit this all anymore. You look at old Vigilance cards, and they're like, does not tap during, and you go, whoa, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Convoke was actually kind of funny because I got a card. I was playing Magic Gathering Arena, and there was this card that literally it was only 2 words of text. And then I got that card in real life, and I didn't even recognize the card because they explained Convoke in one of the cards. And when they explained Convoke on the card, it took up like a whole paragraph. And so on the physical card of this, I don't remember what it was, it explains Convoke, and on the actual card, it doesn't. So it's like, or in Magic Gathering Arena, it doesn't. So it was actually really funny to see like 2 words, and then I see this other card, it's the same exact card, and there's an entire paragraph on there. So it is kind of funny that I do think that's, you're absolutely correct. That's probably the reason why they did that. And there are some weird things because of it, though. Like there's this card called, oh man, it's like it's pretty similar to Lifelink. Like the title, the name of the card is very similar to Lifelink, and that was supposed to be their Lifelink. But because the way that it's worded, and because the way that they decided Lifelink was worded, they actually do different things, but only slightly. So what Lifelink does is it makes it to where you can enchant a creature, and then you heal for the damage that the creature does, which sounds like Lifelink, right? Except for the fact that when you enchant an enemy creature, it does a completely different thing because it just nullifies the damage that that creature does. Because you normally don't heal off of the enemy person's lifelink. So the wording gets all weird if you ever have to change things around. So it's nice to have something that's uniform. But either way, again, I'm rambling off on.
No, it's fantastic.
I took that question and went with it, I guess. Well, whatever the question was 10 minutes ago, I took it and went with it.
Well, here, like if you had your BlizzCon magic lamp and you had your 3 wishes, would you make this clarification system, or perhaps your control? Like, what would you spend your 3 wishes on for BlizzCon right now?
Oof. So I've always said that there are 2 major things that are holding back Heroes of the Storm. And a lot of people could name 100 different things. But and I could name 100 different things. Any game that I play, even there are games that I thought were perfect. Like Guild Wars 1, I enjoyed every little bit of that game. And I could still think of 100 things that I would improve. But Heroes of the Storm, 2 things. The first major thing, every competitive game needs 2 things. They need new players, a constant stream of new players, or returning players. And second thing is they need some major reason to keep playing the game and putting a lot of time into it, which is usually some competitive aspect, something that keeps people going. Bragging rights, I guess, is the best way to say it. Like you can brag and say, "Oh, I'm playing on a competitive team," or I'm hitting this rank or whatever. So, in order to keep people and improve the game and get more people, you need to fix 2 things. One, you need a beginner's experience for the game. You need something that brings in more beginners. A lot of people say, "Hey, we just need more advertising." But most people have heard of this game. Honestly, like almost everyone that I've asked about that's played any MOBA or has played any MMO has heard of Heroes of the Storm. Would marketing really make it that much better? I don't know. But what I do know is that when I ask my friends why they left the game, when I ask the casual players, what's holding you back from playing Heroes of the Storm? Every casual player tells me this, and everyone that makes fun of this game is going to laugh at this. They're going to say that the game is not casual enough. And I ask them why, and they say, well, I get into a game with players, and if I go into AI, I have 2 people who just like instantly win the game in 4 minutes. So then I try to play in quick match, and I get absolutely stomped, and everyone's making fun of me the entire time. And there's nothing competitive about AI, and the quick match is too filled with Smurfs and stuff that it's just not fun to play. So I've always said that they need a PvE mode, like they have in StarCraft, that co-op mode that can keep bringing the casual players back without them feeling like they're getting stomped. A PvE mode with multiple difficulties that rewards you for playing it. Something that there's a progression system you can keep playing the game over and keep unlocking new things. This would be fun for the players that have already been playing this game for a long time because it gives them something new to play in the game when they get bored of playing too seriously in Quick Match or playing too seriously in Hero League. Now they can just go and play the co-op missions. I mean, I play these co-op missions in StarCraft all the time. And it's fun because we're constantly unlocking things. There's so many different maps. That would be my first wish. Some co-op progression system that would keep new people coming into the game, that would keep casual players, that would keep even the experienced players because it would give them something new to do. Like the challenge mode or I always like using the example of like the StarCraft 2 co-op missions. If you haven't played those, I highly recommend them. StarCraft 2 is free to play right now. You unlock stuff. It's awesome. Like War said, the Braxis Holdout Brawl, the one that was like, there's 2 versions of it. There was one where you attacked the places, and there was one where you defended the places. Now imagine if those were both in a queue with like 5 other things, and there was difficulties to them, and you would unlock progressing things that, like, say for instance, like I like to use Sonya as the example of, let's say you play once with Sonya, and then your Sonya's PvE score at the end of your game moves up. And if your Sonya's PvE score moves up enough, you can unlock a talent that you get to keep forever, that you don't even need to pick that talent anymore. Say you move it up enough to where you get Sonya to like the level 10 on the PvE level, you get Leap guaranteed. You don't even need to pick Leap in game. You just get Leap guaranteed. So right as you hit level 10, you automatically get both of your ultimate abilities. So you have your Leap and your other one. Now it's easier to do the higher difficulty maps because you have more things going for you, even if you're not mechanically as good as a lot of the people you're playing with. So the casual players can either just unlock a lot of stuff to be good, or the expert players can play with the casuals, and they don't need to unlock as much because mechanically they're a little bit better. So that's why I've always thought about that is the best way to answer this whole thing of bringing the casuals and the competitive players together. That's my first wish.
Well, and you have to like force them to ask those questions. And it's funny to watch somebody play, an experienced gamer, pick up the shooter that came out today. Let's say Skyrim comes out today. First thing the experienced gamer does is checks the box next to him. figures out what his crouch button is, dashes back and forth a little bit, looks up, looks down, what's a bow, what's my inventory? And all the while the game is going, you must run, the dragon's coming, run, and the guy's not running. Whereas the new player is going, oh, run, oh, crud, the story's telling me to go.
Yeah.
And so many times when I was younger, I'd beat a game, not experience half of it because the RPG guys are going, it's the end of the world, you can't rest, you must go to the quest. I'm like, okay, off I go, there's no time for side quests. To have that moment, it's so bizarre to me because I've been playing these games for so long. If I'm Sonya and Uther runs at me and I stop spinning, I go, oh, ooh, what happened? What does Uther do? Oh, I need to go play Uther. But to have that moment for those casuals to go, wait a tick, in this isolated environment without 8 other players running around, I stop spinning. Why?
Yeah.
And get that experience in their head.
And I think that's my thing about it is like in order to get people into Heroes of the Storm, there's no easy ramp anymore. Because you go into quick match and you could be going against Smurfs half the time. You could be going against anyone. And there's just no easy ramp into learning your skills, to getting used to everything. And it's the same thing with StarCraft. Like I came back to StarCraft and I would never want to do the competitive. But then I started playing the co-op so much that I've actually gotten pretty good with a couple races. I could see myself moving more into the competitive. Like I want to go back through and do the story now. Because at first I was even intimidated to just do the story. But now that I've played this co-op mode so much, and I'm up to the higher difficulties now on the co-op mode, I could easily go back through and start just shooting through the story. So I feel like when you're going into Heroes of the Storm, I just think that it's really intimidating to immediately go to PvP. Yeah. And I can use the same example in another area where when I tried to get people to play Hearthstone, they immediately played it and got stomped. And my friend, I'm gonna explain my friend right now. His name is Jeff. I told him to play Hearthstone. He got stomped numerous times. He tried to play it for 3 weeks. He got stomped every single time. And he's like, I'm done with Hearthstone. I don't even want to play Hearthstone anymore. And he loves card games. So then there's this other game called Eternal Card Game. And if you haven't heard of it, it's probably because they don't do a lot of marketing. Eternal Card Game, it's on Steam. And I said, try this game out. There is a solo draft you can do by yourself. There is a solo dungeon you can do by yourself. And in both the solo draft and the solo tournament, you can get cards. When you do the solo tournament, you get enough gold to do a solo draft. And when you do a solo draft every day, you do the solo tournament, you get enough gold to do the solo draft. When you do the solo tournament, you get a keep, or sorry, you do the solo draft, you get all of your cards. And I said the other thing is there's these tiers too. The bots get harder the more you do these. So you can start out and do them with any deck. And then after a while, you need to start actually using the cards you've got and built better decks. Can I tell you right now, Jeff has been playing this Eternal Card Game so much that he's actually unlocked most of the cards now. And he plays competitively. And he's a pretty high rank competitively for a guy that couldn't even play 2 weeks of Hearthstone before he goes, this is just, I can't even get into this at all. He's played this random other game I recommended to him that started off versus AI, but it was competitive because playing versus bots is never fun unless it gets difficult and unless it's has a progression system, some reason to keep playing against bots. And he did that. And now he's playing competitively and actually like really into this game. And now I'm trying to get him into Magic, and we have the same problem all over again where he can't get into Magic because there's no reason to play alone in Magic. So I just wish Heroes of the Storm had something that could bring us all together without needing to worry about like all this other like competitive side of it, without needing to worry about, hey, I can't play with this friend because this friend's high rank and he's going to make me go against really high rank players. So I think that's the main thing that I wish was different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's well thought out. And it's a big wish for the Blizzard team.
It's definitely a big wish. It's one of those things that, again, that's you said I got a genie.
Totally,
you know
totally.
I mean?
And I want it to be real. That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah, the next genie thing, it would be pretty much multiplying the income that the pros make by 5.
Yeah.
If you don't know how much the pros make, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, they make $10,000 twice a year, right from Blizzard, paycheck from Blizzard Entertainment. If you are in an HEC team outside of China, China doesn't make this. If you're in an HEC team and the Australian, New Zealand teams don't make it either, you make $10,000 twice a year. That is terrible. You're trying to encourage people to spend a lot of time on your game and also inspire other people to play this, and you're paying less than minimum wage.
That's the tough part. Is it's so easy to think of that number and be like, oh, well, I mean, you're playing video games. How?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing that's exciting about it. Is like, oh, you get to make a living playing video games. But for me, like, it's so much work. Like I was, LFM asked me to try out for their team, and I told the person that asked me, I said, I want to see where I stand, right? Because I'm a support main, I'm a Grandmaster support main. I played a lot that season. Their support player left, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to try out just to see where I would stand. But there's no, I literally can't pay my bills if I committed 10 hours a day practicing for that amount of money. I said I literally couldn't do it.
That's the difference, is the 10 hours a day too.
Yeah. I'm like, I literally don't even want to commit. I don't even want to waste their time trying out for something that I can't do. And yes, you do get prize money. And if you do make it to events, like if you're one of the better teams and you make it to Western Clash, you make more money, whether or not you win. You just make more money going to Western Clash because you're adding more entertainment by just being there. You make money off of the whenever people buy your icons or your banners or anything like that, because they cheer for you and you get part of the cheers. You get sponsorship money if you get a good big sponsor like Dignitas or TSM. But at the end of the day, if Blizzard would pay 5 times what they're paying, and for a $50 billion company, that's definitely something that they can do. If they paid 5 times what they're paying, then you would have way more people that have guaranteed money that they can push for, and they would be willing to actually try and really push for it. And I think that's the part that is getting people, is like when they're saying it's not a competitive game, it's not a competitive game because we don't have the pros that are trying for it. Like we have these people who just really enjoy the game, but we don't have anyone who's like quitting other games to play this game. And as we see with Fortnite.
That's where it hits. Like that. Like, again, like we're arguing with nobody together, but out there, I know in my heart, I'm like, well, that's like out of college. Whoa, that's decent money, but 10 hours a day, no longer minimum wage at 10 hours a day. Then on top of that, you're supposed to build a scene for yourself on your own Twitch channel that you're gonna spend 3 hours a day on, and then
it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So that's my next thing. Again, it's a genie in a lamp thing, right? Like I think in general, it would bring, because we're all like brought up by the pro community. Like if you have a dream for something, like I've coached 2 or 3 people that have said my goal is to go pro, and I tell them, I say, well, in this game it's actually pretty possible because there's not as many people who are trying for it. But it's one of those things that it's like, if you are encouraged, if you're inspired by people, and more people would be willing to do it. Like if you're making more money as a pro, then you're going to be more inspired to do more events and stuff. You're going to be inspired to do other things, and more people are willing to get into it. Like if there's that off chance you can go pro, if you can, it's a lot easier to convince, like I'm not saying you should. I'm saying as a kid, it's a lot easier to convince your parents, oh, well, I'm Grandmaster right now. If I could just get this much further and get on a team, I could be making $100,000 a year, and I'm this close. It's a lot easier to convince your parents that, rather than try to convince your parents, oh, I'm this close to making $20,000 a year. And they go, well, that's like working at McDonald's. Like, don't play any more video games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's really the difference, is it's not encouraging people to spend a lot of time and money on this game because they don't have the I guess carrot on a stick.
And you really can't discount the amount of people who might be League of Legends almost pros, bottom league pros, and go, here's the story, that game's trash, I'm gonna go kick their butts for their money, and then they get invested in our scene, and now our scene's got skilled people.
Well, and that's the thing that I've said to a lot of dorm teams that are starting. They're like, hey, we've got 3 out of 5 of the members, where do we get the other 2? And I said, well, a lot of the big dorm teams are grabbing people from League of Legends because there's a lot of money on the line. You have a full ride scholarship if you win that. Dorm is more. There's more emphasis on trying to win Dorm right now than there is to win anything else, because you actually are leading yourself to getting a better job. You're leading yourself to a world without debt. There's so much reason to go for Dorm that people are moving from other areas. In fact, I can tell you right now that I know someone from Dorm that played on a Dorm team that moved from League of Legends and learned how to play Heroes of the Storm just so he could compete on a Dorm team. And I can tell you that right off the bat. And he's played a lot more Heroes of the Storm since then. So, and he's bought a lot of he spent a lot of money on it too. So them putting more money into Dorm actually brought them more money. So, and again, more people cheer. Like, if more people were into these things, more people would cheer and they would make more money. There's so many ways that it snowballs if they could just put a little bit more money into Pro, into Dorm. I love Dorm. I think Dorm is one of the greatest things that they've done. And Overwatch has their own version of Dorm as well. I think this is awesome. But the fact that that Dorm is like more encouraged right now than Pro is my second wish. My third wish, I don't know, remove toxicity or something. World peace.
Yeah,
I don't know. If we're gonna leave one last wish for the genie, I guess world peace would be my
Sure.
thing.
Radiate. Well, it's a BlizzCon wish, so world peace at BlizzCon. You know, that's.
Oh yeah. Okay, so BlizzCon related for the third wish. Diablo 4. This isn't Heroes of the Storm related, but am I still allowed to say that? Diablo 4 is my...
Yeah, and if you saw the post yesterday, I'm afraid you're really rubbing that lamp. There is.
Oh no! Was there a post yesterday?
Yeah, it was a hold your horses, guys. You're so excited. We don't want to disappoint you. You know, hold back. We got a lot to announce, but you know it's gonna take time.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's a conspiracy. Maybe that's their like, let's lower their hopes and let's just like still bring it out anyways. No, I did that. I asked there before Mephisto released. Actually, I don't think I can say this. I won't say this. All I'm gonna say is I'm friends with a Blizzard employee, and they've told me they've answered a question before. If you ask a direct question, so I'm gonna ask if Diablo 4 is coming out, and he'll actually tell me no if it's not. So I'm gonna ask because I'm really curious.
Well,
I wish
for your own sanity.
I think their big announcement's probably just gonna be like their Diablo TV show, which we already know about. But.
Yeah, and like Haradra Cube, the phone game, Match the Gems. You know, it could.
Oh, that would be so disappointing.
It would be. It would, particularly for the hardcore game that is Diablo. I mean, maybe there's blood splatters when you connect the gems and. They keep that tone going, but that's awesome, and thank you for those ideas. It's cool to hear how passionate you are about it, but also have those presented in such a way, because it's not something we talk about here much. Is what the top end is and how that's going to influence the rest of the game. Oftentimes, we're here to keep people caught up because the game is often moving so fast for the casuals. Looking beyond that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like that's what's so weird about this game too is like everyone always says it's for casuals, but the casuals are the ones that I find the hardest to keep in the game. Like every time I always ask my friends who are casuals, I'm like, oh, like we should play some Heroes of the Storm. They're like, nah, I don't really want to, and it's just getting wrecked. Oh, there's there lag for the audio?
Just off the video, we can give a restart here, a chuckle to it, perhaps. Maybe we can get that back online for you guys.
Oh, they say it's only for you. That's weird.
Okay. Well, if it's just for me, then...
No, if it's just you, then it doesn't matter at all.
We're not hurting nobody. We're not hurting nobody.
Yeah, we could... Yeah. I don't know. I wish Diablo 4 came out. I guess it's not really that long, though. Like, the time between Diablo 2 and 3 versus the time between 3 and 4. But then again, 3 wasn't really what we wanted when it first came out. I had a lot of fun with it, though. I mean, no complaints, but I don't know. Either way.
I got no complaints about our next topic because he's been a blast. I have been forcing my stream to play him, well, for me to play him with them ad nauseum. Mal'Ganis is out right now. What do you think of him, Paradox?
I think, okay, so the first thing that I want to get out of the way is, as of right now, he's going to be nerfed. Like, guaranteed. Yeah. So before we talk about how busted he is or whatever, he's overtuned. Let's just say that for the first thing. His win rates are very, very high. I looked at a couple websites, and his win rates are way too high for a hero that has that many things that people still need to learn about it. There's so many different aspects where you can get much better at him. His skill ceiling seems very high. So for him to have that high of a win rate with a skill ceiling that seems that high, like sure, his skill floor might be pretty low too. So he's easy to get into. But for someone that has all those little things that he can improve on, it seems weird that his win rate's that high. But yeah, his win rate seems to be about, I've seen anywhere between 57 and 65%. Like I think that's on the notes as well. So it's very, very brutal.
Yeah, we're looking at 65% in quick match right now, which is what we might want to go off for a little bit, because Hero League's 57, Team League's 56, and I'm not sure which one we should listen to anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Team League's just a strange place in general. Like, it could be one of those things where they know, hey, if we leave Mal'Ganis open, they're going to Mal'Ganis, and all we have to do is play Ana. So people are a little bit better at knowing how to answer it. But unranked quick match, you can't draft to counter him. I always think it's strange drafting to counter a tank in general. Like, I feel like tanks should be things, especially with how few tanks we have. I think tanks should be things that work generally in every situation, and shouldn't be things that you have to counter. Like, they're not like, I don't know. I always think, like, if they play a Genji and the Genji's going to be a problem, it's okay to counter the Genji with, like, one person that has, like, a targeted CC. But with, like, a tank, I feel like a tank shouldn't be countered, like, shouldn't be something that should be that easy to counter, and it shouldn't be something that should be necessary to counter, because they need to be there. If all you can do is counter a tank, you've pretty much won the game. If you counter a Genji, he's annoying, but now he's out of the fight, but you don't win the fight. But if you counter their only tank, you just won the entire game. And I don't think that should be the case. So I think they should tone down his numbers. And if his counters are that powerful, I think that they should answer his counters as well. But yeah, quick match, I think generally, I think that in quick match and unranked, there's more likely that people are not focusing on countering him. And yes, his counters right now are very important in taking him out. Like Ana, for example, because he heals so much during fights, I think that that's really the best way to deal with him, is by lowering his healing. Get that hex on him.
And that's fair. I mean, other heroes that are working well again is kind of a Yrel situation. Things like Tracer, maybe Sergeant Hammer that you never even get in range of, Raynor, Lunara, but like he's also just having a really good time against a lot of our mainstays at the moment. Kerrigan, Dahaka, Kael'thas, which is in lower leagues all the time, White Mane, winning great against Tychus, even if people are thinking, oh, well, he's new Diablo, I'll just grab a Tychus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of interesting. But yeah, tanks should be the ones doing the countering. Like you don't need to counter him. That's what Seebla said, and I completely agree. It's so yeah, he's really scary right now in general. Like he's got so much CC and so much survivability. I think the main thing to look for in not necessarily countering him in the draft, but the way you play around him once you're already in the game, is he has no sustain outside of a fight. So with like Joanna, you have Laws of Hope that can heal you outside of a fight. With Murden, you have his passive. With ETC, you have his E. With Diablo, you have his W. Nearly every tank has a way to heal themselves outside of a fight. And if he's not attacking a minion, he doesn't have any way to heal himself outside of a fight. So I think that's one of the major things. Once he is toned down a little bit, I think that's one of the major areas that you can play around him. Kind of like a Garrosh, like you need to check all the bushes with like cheap abilities, so he doesn't just come out of a bush. You need to be able to slow him so he can't flip someone. You need to make sure that your tanks flipping him are getting flipped so that they can jump away. But you don't necessarily need to counter Garrosh. You just need to change your playstyle a little bit. I feel the same thing should be the case with Mal'Ganis. You change your playstyle to more of a poking playstyle instead of a hard engage, and you should be able to beat him in the majority of the fights.
No, that's fair. And I wonder if he went unnerved, which we're going to go the 2 weeks. He's got a build right now, particularly to level 7. It gets a little diverse, but Time to Feed, everyone's grabbing that at level 1, and Fueled by Torment at level 4. Time to Feed being the one where you get these little vampire symbols over enemy characters. When you hit them for the first time in a couple of seconds, you get a big heal back, and it's a very rewarding thing when burst comes at the beginning of fights, usually into your tank face. You can make that recovery.
Yeah, I think that I think his level 1 talents are interesting. I mean, the ones that I see with the highest win rate right now. Hold on, let me pull back up Hot Slogs. I had it pulled up just a second ago. I see this is Lifesteal one is very high in win rate, but I do find the majority of the builds, the pros that I've been watching, have been picking up time to feed, as it's just the fastest burst heal and the most consistent in fights, which again is where he already thrives, and he's going to be constantly getting these burst heals every time he attacks a target. So it's been picked up a lot, but the highest win rate from what I can see is that Vampiric Aura,
which is thematically awesome.
It's honestly like I don't want that one to be nerfed. Like I want that to stay exactly where it's at, and I don't know how they can manage that, because with the win rate at 62% right now, I want to see that talent work without it being nerfed. Because if it's nerfed too much, it's just going to be like negligible healing. You know what I mean? I want to see that stay, but they're going to have to nerf so much to make that thing stay. So I don't know.
Well, and Fueled by Torment is just so good at negating so much. I mean, you're going to put on your Necrotic Brace. This is your level 4 talent. Desecrate the Air. Dealing damage. Actually, a pretty good amount of damage, too. Gaining 25 armor for 3 seconds. For that 3 seconds, whenever you're hit by something, you get 12 health back, and your Vampiric Touch converts more to healing. It's up against things that I don't even know what they say, because I found Fueled by Torment and loved it.
Yeah, Fueled by Torment. So here's my thing. I actually really like a lot of the talents on 4, and it makes me sad that Fueled by Torment's so good, because I like Echo of Doom. You increase the amount of time that you have your armor for what's essentially 33%. So you increase, you have a 50% uptime on armor, which is really good. But Fueled by Torment counters his counters. If Tychus attacks him, he heals more than Tychus deals during the time that his Fueled by Torment's up. And all you have to do is watch for the red flaming thing gun from Tychus, which is his when he does his damage. So when you see that red flaming gun, you immediately pop your W. Tychus walks up to you, and you literally you heal more than he does with Bigger They Are on him. It's insane. I mean, Bigger They Are, I think he deals more than you heal, but still, you're healing so much back that Bigger They Are is like negated. And it's just fascinating to me how much that actually heals. But the other thing about that that's a little scary is if your minions die and you just take damage from the melee minions do like 2 damage, and your W heals for like 25. So you're literally healing so much off of just minions as well. So it's way too much healing. It's so much healing. But yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I think it's level 4 talent. That one could definitely see a nerf. I mean, even remove one or the other of the things. One of them increases the healing you do, and one of them makes it where you heal when you take damage. Just pick one of those, remove the other one. I think it'd be a lot more balanced.
Ideally, I'd like to keep the damage heals you, because there's so many fascinating things that I've been enjoying. Like, ooh, what happens if I stand in the, quick match, Warhead Junction acid pools? Nope, okay, that's not a net gain. But it's a good, way to reduce that. Getting in 0 charge Zarya's face is quite profitable.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, even just like Blaze lights his fire to heal himself, and you walk up and heal yourself too.
Yeah, get in
like,
that.
I'll heal off your fire too. So yeah, I think in general it's pretty good. So I think that would be fair. Just ditch the other part of that. The Vampiric Touch converts 15% more hero damage into healing. Ditch that.
Yeah.
Keep the other piece of it.
I mean,
maybe toss that onto one of the talents that's picked less often, like the Might of Sargeras toss it on the Might of Sargeras. It's like the least picked one.
There is like a nice stack with Echoes of Doom giving you that extended duration and doing one more explosion if you do the armor Winged Guardian at 1 for like Rainers and stuff. So there's cute stuff that when toned down is really available. But level 7, we're seeing a lot of people go for Will of Tichondrius. 3rd slash deals 4% giant killer. I'm in love with Black Claws because I love weaving. It feels so rewarding to me getting in that 1 bonus attack. But this is where you start to wonder, what is the long-term viability of Mal'Ganis? Is the 3rd slash too delayed? Will we learn to dodge it? Do you need it now?
I feel like there's no dodging his Q, any variation of his Q. It's too quick.
Yeah.
I think his E is going to be his main thing that is his counter, where right as he E's, we're going to see Rainer's knocking him back. We're going to see Morales is knocking him back. We're going to see every knockback pushing him away. We're going to see people stacking slows on him when he tries to E in. We're going to see people using movement speed increases to themselves. We're going to see people putting themselves in positions where they're about to take 1 damage after they get slept. So say a Blaze fire goes down and the sleep's running in, you run into the fire. I think we're going to see counters to his E. But in terms of his Q and his W, I don't think there's any counters or playstyle changes for him. So I think that's not going to change. I mean, his level 7 talents, I completely agree. Black Claws, to me, I think that one could get a buff. Its win rate's really high, but in general, like, it's 45% more damage, but its auto attack is like very small, like in terms of damage. Will of Tichondrius is used not just because it's a giant killer, but it also heals you because you're stealing that health.
Oh, yeah.
And because you're using it on tanks, you're healing yourself once, but then you're also healing yourself again because you're dealing damage, which is then your passive triggers. You know what I mean? So you're healing yourself off of so many different things, and you're healing 4%. Who you're normally going to hit with your Q is often going to be the tank and someone else, so you're likely going to heal. It's nuts in general. So it's so much healing. It's so crazy. So that's why Will of Tichondrius is just so good. The other talents, I actually really like Spreading Plague, and I noticed that Wubby and one other of the EU players was using Spreading Plague at 7 in their builds, but the majority of the players, albeit either top lane or main tank, have been using the percent health, the Will of Tichondrius.
Well, and with our shared XP, it's such a big deal to make everyone feel like they're winning in a fight, and tanks dying can make a team fall apart. That survivability you talked about, even. The heroic abilities, there's a bit of a runaway with Carry and Swarm, 61% win rate, 59% or 61% pick rate, 59% win rate.
Yeah, I watched a lot of the pro builds, and I watched the pros playing it, and I talked to a couple of the pros about this specifically because I personally think both of these ults are good. And here's essentially what most people said: is they said that Carry and Swarm is more consistent. You can use it in a wider range of areas. You can use it when you're full health to just get kills, because it's still a lot of damage. It's almost Bladestorm's amount of damage for just a shorter duration. And you can use it to heal yourself. You can use it to do damage. You can use it to win objectives, to win camps. And it's harder to counter. Then they said, in the off chance that the enemies have something like Cursed Bullet, or they have like a Tychus who's using Bigger They Are, and they can quickly get you down to like 35% health, but they can't kill you, then Dark Conversion actually gets a lot of value because you get Cursed Bullet, and then you just Cursed Bullet someone else, and you get all your life back.
That's interesting.
So that's where the other side of Dark Conversion gets its value. Yes, there's the Dream. I did a video where I played Mal'Ganis, and there's a point in there between like 8 minutes and 30 seconds and like 9:40 where I literally fight 4 people, kill 4 people, and the 5th one shows up, and I just Dark Conversion him and then kill him too. And there's the Dream, right? But I don't think pros are looking for the Dream. I think it's going to be... I've said this a couple times that I think it's going to create a lot of Reddit threads for like quick match players. Sure. But I think in general, the Carry and Swarm is going to be the more consistent option. It's going to get value the most often.
And there's a lot of things you might just want to dodge, get out of. It does have that load up time, which can be a little dangerous, but once you learn to play with it, you're doing all right. I mean, Dark Conversion, the poison damage is ice blockable, and there's all sorts of ways to negate it, like we were talking about Ana earlier, as it is a heal over time.
Yeah, you can either mitigate his heal, or you can mitigate the damage that's being dealt to the person that's getting hit. Like Lunara has like the Nullify Magic at 13. She can just remove it from whoever gets hit by it. So there's ways to... It's probably it's the easier one to counter. It's the easier one to deal with, and it's least consistent. But it's like Pyroblast. I'd say that in the few times that it should be picked by pros, it works really well. But in most other cases, you're going to be picking Carry and Swarm just because it's so consistent.
Well, I like that layer you added to it, that you're going to take something like the Bullet or Tychus's cooldown with you when you Dark Conversion, because there's this cute kind of Zarya charge-up idea where you're solo lane Mal'Ganis, you do pretty good. You end up pissing off, let's say, the Sky Temple boss on your way up the map. and you arrive with a third of your health. Then you dark conversion to opener. You've now burdened the enemy healer so much that they're busy, and the rest of the team cleans up the important bits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and that was another discussion about that too, where one of the pro offlaners explained, well, actually, it wasn't even a pro offlaner. It was a pro assassin who's just been using him in offlane, Homicidal Hots, the new flex player for Heroes Hearth. He said essentially that in the solo lane, it could be an interesting option because you'll have a tank to hide behind as you get low health.
Yeah.
So you start getting really low health, you can hide behind your tank so you don't die to burst, and then you can sneak in and use your R and pretty much wipe out a frontliner on the enemy team. And it was kind of interesting to me because I was like, okay, so using it as an offlane assassin tool is kind of interesting because then it's not just the tank. The tank can still do whatever they want to. But I guess it brings up the question of, if he's not nerfed too much, why would you, if you're going to get Mal'Ganis, you might as well have him as a main tank. But yeah, it was something interesting that I heard from them, was another possible use for it. But I don't know. I think they're both viable ults. I think just either way, they definitely can both work.
And I've been playing a lot of Johanna, so when we get into can Mal'Ganis solo tank, my brain is like, whoa, hang on. He doesn't dismount people in a rotation with his blind from far away. He doesn't have any poke of any kind to interrupt those objectives without getting in there himself. He's CCable. Doesn't recover well from the Garrosh throw, perhaps, or as quick. He still has the swipes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just Johanna. Johanna's the kitchen sink. If we were to actually give him standing, remove Johanna from the pile, he does look like a pretty good solo tank.
Yeah. I think Johanna's there's a lot of tanks that have trouble with some of those things. I mean, Muradin, same thing. If you're trying to interrupt something, you either need to throw a Q or you need to commit to a jump just to interrupt something. And Mal'Ganis and Muradin do a lot of the same things with that. Like the amount, the length Muradin can jump and then throw his hammer is a little bit longer than the range that 3 Qs would get a Mal'Ganis. So I think they both kind of fit in that area of that. So I definitely think that he can be a main tank 100%. But there are definite areas where he will struggle with, where someone like Johanna will do a lot better. I think, again, like my one area that I find he's very weak at is sustain outside of fights. Him and Diablo have that problem, but like Diablo, if you feel like you're going to have a big problem outside of fights, you just get the globe thing at level 1 and you're good to go. Because then outside of fights, you just grab one globe and then go back into a fight again. But I think out of the tanks, Diablo and him are the ones who have that problem the worst. And he doesn't have a talent that fixes that problem very easily.
It's interesting to look at his map win rates and just imagine how many hits can you get with Blind as a Bat? And that is his win rate on the map. Right now, Towers of Doom, he's at 67%. And then you go to something big, open, and perhaps spread out like Alterac Pass, and he's got a 48% there.
Oof. Yeah, Blind as a Bat, that's a whole conversation itself. I tell people, I've watched people try to explain where to go when, and it's too slow. Like, no, it's just too slow to get the value. It's even on comms, even on LAN, it doesn't matter. Unless you're on LAN next to someone, you can visually look at their screen. It's not going to work. So what I've been telling to people to do with Blind as a Bat is use it for its utility. If you're fighting on a boss point, the boss dies. Like I watched a fight earlier where the boss died. Everyone just clustered on the point. He popped Blind as a Bat and just went in circles. And right as the Blind as a Bat ended, everyone was dead.
Yeah.
And so things like that are good, where you can just go in circles around a camp or a boss. Awesome. The other reason why I like Blind as a Bat is siege damage. You do Blind as a Bat and just sit on a turret, it's like 70-80% of a turret's held at level 16. No other tank can do that much siege damage. There's no one that can do that much siege damage. No tank that can do that siege damage. So if you ever have to like destroy something quickly, like say you get a kill and their person's up in 20 seconds and you just want to kill a keep really fast, he's going to be one of the best for racing keeps like that. And I think there's going to be other areas too, like on BOE, when the mortal fights are going on, right after they do that first like melee spin or whatever, you have at least 6 seconds before he does another one of those. So you can add to the race on him as well. and that could be the difference. Like no other tank can add that much race in 6 seconds. So I think for the utility aspect of blind is a bad, I think it's really, really good.
Well, the sleep alone, I mean, his secondary highest win rate is on Battlefield of Eternity, and sleeping people in that circles, that's easy business. And
yeah.
You can get some serious business done with that. But I'm really excited to see how he continues to perform on things like Infernal Shrines. Day 1, Volskaya, he was running away with it nearly 80%. Now he's been toned down to 63%.
Yeah. We'll see. I definitely think the maps will even out a little bit more as we go, but the win rates are already terrifying, especially when there's not a lot of easy ways to recognize counters. Like if Mephisto's win rate ever went really high, it was easy to see that people would get used to moving like into the circles. So you could know once people got used to him, his win rate would drop down. But for this character, there's not a lot you can counter. I think his E is the easiest thing to counter from anyone. And that's the only thing we're going to get used to countering. Other than that, it's the rest of his kit's pretty hard to deal with because they're all low cooldown, easy abilities to land. So I think the tuning of him will happen soon. But yeah, level 13 though. So I know what the pros are all going, but what are your thoughts on these 13 talents?
I'm doing deep sleep a lot for the movement speed increase. Sleep duration, I don't really even notice.
Yeah, that's literally what you said is exactly what every pro that I've asked so far, they've said, I get deep sleep so that I move faster, and the sleep duration is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Like, they could remove the sleep duration, and they would still pick that talent, is pretty much what they were saying. Blood Rush has the highest win rate on hot slogs, but it doesn't stack with the E speed, so I don't know why you would need 15% movement speed increase without E going. So I think deep sleep's really the way to go. I like the Night Beckons because when your team wakes them up, you can still kill them because they're slowed, but I think that movement speed's too hard to pass up. I really do.
And I do find more and more games that I'm going Vanquish the Weak at 20, which gives you that bonus damage into slowed targets, and then you're gearing up for that with the Night Beckons. So there's a assassiny, bruisery business there that I do like stacking.
Yeah, and then if you combine that with your bonus damage, if you get Black Claws, then your auto attacks actually are starting to hurt a lot, right?
Yeah, and
like because they're slowed, and you're doing the bonus damage, 45% bonus damage plus the extra 15% bonus damage. Yeah, I could see that adding up quite a lot.
I mean, more often than not, I hit 20 and I'm going, Vanquish the Weak. I want to win. I want to do more damage. I want to affect these players' movement speed a little bit and get them out of position. Wrath of the Nereza is cute. Seeker Swarm is almost like I was losing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to run away during my Carrion Swarm.
Yeah, it's interesting. The 20 talents in general, I've seen most people just upgrade their whatever ult they got.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes it's not so much of we're losing the fight and I want to sleep them. It's more like you're dealing damage to everyone there, and then if you win that, or if they're running away, you sleep them and you can catch up to them and re-sleep them so your team can kill them. So it just gives way more like CC. And it deals a little bit of damage. It adds a little bit of damage afterwards because you can hit everyone for an extra like 400 damage. But yeah, I think Vanquish the Weak's still pretty good. I don't really like the upgraded version of the Dark Conversion, the Wrath of Nethreza. I think honestly, the range of it's very small, so it'll be rare if it gets value. I guess if it does get value, it's really good, but it's rare.
Well, and that's like, where does that come in the fight when they're all grouped on you? You are in an emergency situation, and that's when this would get its most value, and you're going to die over those 3 seconds, perhaps.
True.
So it kind of counteracts itself. Currently at a 14% win rate or pick rate, but when we get into win rates at level 20, you're level 20, the enemy team's not.
Yeah.
And
it's a big thing about 20 too. It's so hard for me to explain to a lot of people. I'm like, don't draft for 20. Like, just don't ever draft for 20 unless you're like on a map that consistently hits 20, like a Tomb of the Spider Queen. Like, just don't draft for 20 because you're gonna lose. How many objectives are you gonna lose before you get that value?
Exactly.
Is always my thought. Even like late game stuff. Like, how many objectives do you lose before you reach the point where that character is viable? I don't know.
Well, I did want to make sure we touched on one big topic that's going around before we end today. There was the balance support patch last week, which affected and moved around some supports. Lily's up a little bit. Basically, everything they did that nerfed or buffed, it had its way. Morales is up 7.7%, and I really like that shield grenade build going on. And we'll see where she ends up with time. But I wonder how much of that is Team League. Team League Morales is the new Team League system. And we got 3 emails this week all telling about the same story. Cameron was saying that this is a great replacement to Unranked Draft for them. Lawrence and Shogunik and EU were saying that they feel like Team League has ruined their Hero League experience and everyone's gone from Hero League to Team League. And no matter what they do there, you can't have a balanced game when bronzes show up in your plat game. How has Team League been for you, Paradox?
I guess part of the reason why Team League's different for me is my chair is making noise. I think part of the reason why Team League's been interesting for me is I haven't been doing Hero League because I don't want to deal with decay. Decay was added last season, and if you get Masters, you have to play every 15 days, and you have to do Hero League every 15 days. Well, for me, I like to get really into it for about a week or two, and then I like to not think about it and start practicing other things. And I don't like to, when I play Hero League, I like to practice the few heroes that I'm going to play to move up in rank, and I don't like to practice everything else. So it gets kind of boring playing like the same few heroes a lot. So in Hero League, I didn't really like Decay because I was never in the mindset to play whenever I had to play just so I didn't decay.
Yeah.
Team League doesn't have the decay, so this season I've only actually played Team League. And I feel it with other people because it gave me another thing that I can play other than Hero League. And there was this thing from Hot Sogs that came out that explained the amount of games submitted from Hero League dropped by 30%, and the amount of games submitted from Team League increased by like 150%. So yeah, I could completely agree that yes, this probably does lower the amount of games that are being played in Hero League. And yes, some of them are really bad. I mean, if you play with 4 Masters players, it's going to give you the lowest bronze player you've ever seen because it's trying to keep the queue times good. It's trying to keep an even team going against an even team. So they'll place you against a team that's like diamonds and plats, and then they'll give you like someone who just barely started playing this game. And yes, weird stuff does happen, but the fact that you can play with your friends no matter what party size you have is pretty cool. And the queue times are faster, which is what everyone was asking for. So generally, I think that it's been a good change, but I have heard both sides and I do understand it either way. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was pretty good.
The big question is, if they were to combine at this BlizzCon, what do they do with your Hero League? You put all that work into it.
I don't think they should combine for a while. Team League is still very abusable. You can still smurf. They're still encouraging people to smurf. They're still boosting friends. There's way too many things it's a fun game mode for friends, but there's too many ways to abuse it. I can't imagine they would bring it back. There's just too many ways to smurf. Like that's what was happening when they had duo queue is someone would make a smurf account. They would group up with a friend, and they would be a grandmaster player on a smurf that's like silver, and their friend would be masters or grandmasters, and they would boost their friend all the way up to like grandmaster number 1, even though they never play against another grandmaster player. So I can't imagine they would ever merge them. But if they want to make Hero League popular again, they might bring back duo queue as long as you're within a couple ranks of each other. Like if you're both master, you could duo queue. If you're both grandmaster, you could duo queue, and I think that would be perfectly fine. But yeah, I don't think they're going to merge them. I think there's just still Hero League is still kind of you're proving to everyone that you yourself can get someplace without any help with friends, and I think that's where I still take Hero League rank more seriously than Team League rank.
Sure,
even with all these changes.
And that's a good solution. Is Team League? I don't think we can add that you're in a certain range business because then friendship's ruined. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, you just can't do it in Team League.
Plus, that's the rank I played with my friends for so long. That's why it's lower than my Hero League. And if you bring it back in the same range, that sounds healthy. I like that solution. Let's bring that back.
Yeah.
Well,
But oh, and to talk about the support thing earlier, a lot of the support changes were pretty cool. The Ana got a piercing dart
yeah.
baseline. That was cool. Morales got a W talent got a buff. She got a couple little grenade buffs. The build I used to go all bomb build. I'd get the like the shield and the energy back and all that. Now I just go like an auto attack W build where I get my energy back really fast by auto attacking, and then I use my W to mitigate damage. Works out pretty well. I've actually had a lot of success with Morales since all of her changes. I think I've played 6 games with her and I've won all of them.
Yeah.
So I've been actually really enjoying her.
No, me too. Morales is not a guilty pleasure, but with all these healers having to deal damage to heal and be busy in the business, it's kind of relaxing to be like, wow, healing. Holy priest. Let me stand back and heal. You want a grenade? I'll get rid of that shield. Good. I did a good job.
Man. Yeah. No, I think seriously, I actually really like where she's at right now. The Brightwing, they're buffing her a little bit. I think that's good. They did an interesting change where they made it to where a lot of the healers can't heal minions anymore.
Yeah.
Morales can still do that, but like Alexstrasza can't anymore. There's good and bad about Alexstrasza not being able to do it anymore. I think overall it's generally good, so you don't accidentally use your own health to heal a minion. That's the main thing that's really good about it. But there was kind of a downside because like Q build, you could get to the point where you could heal for free because you would heal and then pick up a flower. Heal
could you still get flowers off of non...
Yes. You could have before they changed where you couldn't heal minions. So that was an option you could do to really get some momentum, because if there was a large area you could keep healing the frontline minions, then you would have 2 full waves pushing and you could leave the lane, and those 2 full waves would usually take like towers. So there were some benefits and tools you could use for it, but generally I think that it was a buff that they removed the ability to do that, because the few times that I would accidentally heal a minion instead of an ally would usually be really frustrating. So I think that was a pretty good change for all of them that they've made. That especially like Lily, for example. Like if you're trying to heal someone near you and you accidentally throw it towards a minion because the minion, you were slightly out of range of a hero, you throw it to a minion and now it's on cooldown and you can no longer use it to heal your ally, that gets me. Like I feel like a Lily should be able to just hold down their Q button like 90% of the time. That's what I feel. I mean, that's like super easy, but I feel like it shouldn't waste it on minions. But again, I don't think there was really any need to have Lily heal minions anyways. But Morales can still heal minions, and I still definitely do that.
But you got it. You have no way to heal yourself, which is healthy because it gives her a trait that's not Olaf Muradin. And
exactly. So, but yeah, I think most of the support changes were pretty good.
We've talked about a lot of topics today. Actually, a great question from the chat before we leave from Dragon. Do you think they will get rid of the double role comps and try to make us more of a 1 tank, 1 healer, 1 specialist, rest DPS? In addition to that, BlizzCon is probably when they're going to announce the new roles. Do you have any hopes for those?
I think really what Blizzard's trying to do with the roles now is bring out so many roles that people stop trying to fit a specific thing. We've seen so many weird things that have worked lately. And to me, that's way more exciting to watch a pro team that's like, well, let's shove Uther, Tassadar, Diva, Zul, and I don't know, Tyrande all into a team and make it work. And it's like, that's cool to see like weird stuff work. And I'm always excited to see that.
Yeah.
I don't ever want it to get to the point where it's always... I think that it's easier to be able to like main a role if you know that your role's always going to be needed. But for me, I like it just way more open. I like it to be like, hey, if we want to try something weird, let's try something weird. So I'd like them to add like 8 roles. And that way you don't need to know, hey, we need 1 tank, 1 DPS, 1 healer, 1 specialist, and then 1 mage. Now there's gonna be so many roles, you can't shove all of them into the thing. It's gonna be like, oh, we've got non-healer supports, we've got healers, we've got tanks, we've got bruisers, we've got so that's kind of what I want to see. I think they've officially confirmed 6, that there will be at least 6.
via T-shirt. I think
because the T-shirt shows 6, but I can't figure out what those 6 would be because there's supports, there's non-healer supports, there's tanks, there's bruisers, mage, pushers. I don't know. I'm not really sure what they would add with the. I don't know how I could think of like 8, but I can't think of any combination of 6. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited for whatever. But my thing is, I get more excited when I see weird comps in pro play than when I see just the usual one tank, one bruiser, one healer, and this just gets boring to me.
Well, so. And I never want to see that in my hero league because I hate fighting it. The bumper cars, I call it, when you're fighting Lucio and Diva and Raynor, and like it's not real CC, but you know you're never gonna get to press a button because you're just bounced around like crazy. We know that this BlizzCon will also be the time for them to address what they said, a community outcry for a learning tool, quick match forced comps.
Oh, quick match forced comps. Yeah, I think it's needed. I don't really like quick match. I think is the thing.
Fair enough.
I don't even like to think about quick match. Like every quick match game I've gotten into, it feels bad. Like I either stomp or I get stomped, and 90% of the time it's because of the comp that was given to us. And it's tough for me because there's so many reasons why you lose that I feel like people aren't learning from it. Like if you're in drafts and both teams get a reasonable team comp, it's so close that it's pretty easy to call out why you lost. And then it's easy to learn off of that. Like, hey, we lost because they were getting camps and we weren't. So you learn from that. But in quick match, there's so many reasons why you lost that I feel like it's impossible to learn why you're losing and impossible to learn. So I see these people that are like level 3,000 at the game who play mostly quick match. When they go into Hero League, they end up in like bronze and silver. And it's because they have such a hard time learning from it. But then I'll watch these people who play unranked for like level 500, and they'll go into Hero League and they'll easily get up to like plat or diamond. And it's because they visually like know why they're losing because they have regular team comps all the time. So force team comps in quick match, I think would be a good thing. But how do you force a Murky into some of those? I don't know. Or like if one person queues as a Murky and one person queues as Lost Vikings, like what are they going to do with the other 3 to try to make that work? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, do you end up waiting forever and then the system isn't working for you personally anymore? And
yeah, so I don't know. If they find a way, all on it. You know what I mean? Like I still won't go to quick match, but all on it. Like cool.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, NotParadox. It was a lot of fun having these conversations with you. Like I said, you were one of our most requested guests, and it was a delight to finally have you on. We'll certainly have to have you back when Garrett's here, so we can have the full team.
Yeah. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I was excited to be on it, and that's pretty awesome. So I'm so glad you guys invited me. This has been a lot of fun, and it flew by, honestly. Like the just the fact that we shot through this so fast is crazy because it felt like it was like 10 minutes. But yeah, if there's any other time that you want to bring me back, then that would be awesome. I'd gladly be back, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, man. Where can people find you across the web? Where should they look for you?
I think number one, where I'm most known for, is my YouTube. So again, it's youtube.com/c/NotParadox. And that's going to be the easiest way to find me. And if again, you can just Google NotParadox and I'll pop up. My YouTube channel will pop up. Otherwise, I have a Discord. I'll see if I can link it in the either you can link it or I'll link it in the comments. I don't know if I'm allowed to, if that'll cut me out. But the Discord's the other place that I'd recommend finding me, as I have I hang out with people there. I link all of my videos there, and I'll say whenever I'm streaming. And then I do stream, and you can follow the stream, but I only stream maybe once a week, if that. I usually try to stream on Sundays, and I'll stream for usually about 5 to 6 hours on Sunday. But yeah, those are really going to be the best places to find me, is my YouTube channel, my stream. I do have all the other social media. I've got a Twitter. I think it's like not_paradox. I've got a Instagram. I think it's the same, like @not_paradox. I've got a Facebook. It's facebook.com/notparadoxofficial. And I've got a Heroes Hearth account. I've got, I don't know. I am literally everywhere. So
you got a Google Plus even. Like
I do have a Google Plus. I'm literally everywhere. So if you can't find me by Googling, I'm sure people around here can link you someplace. But the main thing that I'd recommend if you are interested in me, check out my YouTube channel. I do HOTS related things for psychology, philosophy, and just different strategies. I try to do guides for every map, every hero, but there's still a lot that I'm missing in terms of the heroes. And I do different analysis of pro games with why the pros pick, why the pros don't pick. And I will be doing some very short analysis on pro games soon where I pick apart the main fight that changed the game. And I'll be doing those later, but that's probably going to be about a month or two out. But otherwise, I've got videos that come out just about every other day, so feel free to check those out.
Can't recommend it enough, honestly. Getting under 10-minute strategy videos is nearly impossible on the internet, and you managed to put those together, so thank you for all you do for the community and getting those videos up every week. Again, NotParadox. Find everything online. We, of course, want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/ITN. This week, we want to thank Chief Steve, Jujutsu Jedi, and Good King Hadron. Thank you so much for your support. Of course, thank you to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, and Pathagos. Garrett will be back next week for our pre-BlizzCon episode. You can find him over at Garrett Art. You can find me at Kyle Fergusson, and you can follow the show at ITNcast. Emails to the show come from itncast@gmail.com. Thank you all for watching today. Thank you for the support. Good luck, have fun. We'll see you next time.